Hi, I'm Ulla Oberman, Global Head of Music at TikTok. Thanks so much for tuning in to this featured session. I'm very honored to present to you today Mick Fleetwood, who you just saw skateboarding to the Fleetwood Mac song Dreams, which was originally released in 1977. Mick, welcome. It's a real honor to have you here.
Oh, fantastic! Good to see you, and this is exciting, and great memories, and now a whole different view of what's happening here, which I'm thinking we're going to talk about. I think.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about that. We've learned that TikTok's community is really passionate about music, and we've seen the platform become a home where artists and fans can interact with one another and really thrive. One of the most iconic moments in 2020 was this moment that unfolded where Nathan Apodaca was skateboarding. He was drinking his Ocean Spray cran raspberry drink, and he was singing along and vibing along to Dreams. So tell me, what was that moment like to see the rebirth of that song and to see it become this viral cultural moment? I think probably one of the most talked about moments of the entire year last year.
No, it's almost too much to answer because it hit for me, it hit like an emotional tidal wave, where as a musician and part of a band, Fleetwood Mac, for so many years, was introduced in a new way, out of the blue, totally spontaneous, totally joyous, celebrating a moment that it incorporated our music, the music that I've made for the last 50 years with Fleetwood Mac and everyone that's been in Fleetwood Mac. So it was really beyond belief and an instant feeling of this is just super great, and it's energized, and all the expression that you mentioned, I think before we went on the program here, is that it was so connective to the person Nathan. I know him as Nathan. We know each other now, and that wouldn't have happened. So all the magic unfolded, and for me, of course, it was super special. And Fleetwood Mac, seeing the song being reintroduced at such a incredible level that was beyond anyone's imagination, and that's the whole thing that's unfolded with what I'm seeing on TikTok, and it's very creative, and even some people that may not even know that they're being creative become intrigued, and they stay, and the whole thing grows out of it. So that was a moment to be remembered, probably one of the most profound moments for me in many years, connected to our music.
I remember attending the 2018 Music Cares Person of the Year benefit, and Fleetwood Mac was being honored. And you guys gave a wonderful performance, tremendous guest stars. And when you were accepting the award, I remember Stevie Nicks. She gave a really passionate, heartfelt speech. And one thing that completely landed with me, she kept saying to the audience, she said, we really want as a band for our legacy to live on. We want your children to listen to Fleetwood Mac, and we want their children to listen to Fleetwood Mac. And I thought about that so many times.
Wow.
While being, the head of music at TikTok last year, that we were actually playing a really big part in making that a reality. And this younger audience, many of whom were not born when this album was originally released.
Right.
They were hearing that song. They were being introduced to it, I think, in a very special way. For me, it was also a very special moment. So thank you for that.
No, it's fantastic, and you're reminding me of a lovely young lady, Lainey Gardner, who sang her version of Dreams a few months ago, and that to me spoke volumes in terms of where this thing has gone. And not only have I found out she's a really, actually incredibly talented artist in her own right, knowing that we triggered and were, you know, at least for sure, somewhat part of what we're talking about, that one thing led to another and another and another. And it's not actually so much about Fleetwood Mac or Dreams, but once you accept, in my world, that that was amazing and fantastic, what it really triggered is our conversation that is happening now in such a profound way. How do you reach an audience, and how do you become part of something? And I think number one is remaining open. You know, I'm not 17 years old, I'm not 20 years old, I'm 70 years old. It didn't matter. What mattered was, as an artist, you see all of these things coming to pass, and you see people that may never have thought about picking up or singing, that might have led, and probably for sure has led, to them actually progressing and going forward and being part of a creative situation. So that really became the joy of this adventure.
You know, I'd love to talk a little bit about the impact that we think that TikTok can have on the music business and how that's going to evolve. Maybe I can just give you a little reflection of my own on what I'm seeing, and then I'm sure our audience would be really interested in hearing, you know, how you think about that and how you will be using TikTok, or how you think that might impact future generations of musicians.
Part of what I was just relating to and in our conversation is exactly that. And from me to you, which is, you know, I'm an artist that their music became part of it. You have all of the audience that participates and is a collective and presents their music, their ideas, their moments. They're often connected to a whole collage of other people having fun with one idea, which is super cool. But to me, that I suppose if I start asking you a question, would be, there seems to be so much vision that you must be thinking about at TikTok, about how this has become so powerful in the greatest of ways, that you're guiding a ship that can unfold in so many ways. And my question would be, is like, do you have a vision, or do you have a sense of where this is going for you? And because I can't imagine that there aren't so many fantastic connective parts of this that maybe for me haven't been thought of, but you might be thinking of. And that would be a lovely thing to know, that I've been part of a little part of a beginning of something you have a vision for.
I think that's a great question. You know, I think back, I was first using TikTok in 2018. I was working for Warner Brothers, your record label at the time, and I became absolutely fascinated by it. You know, I'd been working for 2 decades in record labels, and one of the things that we always focused on was, how can we use technology to create a better connection between the artist or the song or the album and the fan? How do we help, you know, use technology to make sure that we're connecting the right music with the right fan? And I realized, as I was scrolling through TikTok these first few times, that this was a marketing platform unlike anything that the music industry had ever seen, because it was, the creators were the ones, the creators on the platform were the ones who got behind a song. And when they put their weight behind it, it could explode overnight, and it could go from an absolutely unknown artist and song to a, you know, sort of global superstar smash overnight. And I think that's a very, very profound thing that we are still, you know, really trying to hone in on when it comes to how we use TikTok to help the music industry and to work with the music industry, and also to bring the creators on TikTok joy and allow them to be creative in a safe environment. So I think that's an important place to start from. And what I see happening now is that creator community is getting even bigger, and they're getting even more creative. And the unsigned artists are really starting to find a home on TikTok, and they're realizing that you just need, that lightning to strike once. That one creator finds your song, decides that they're going to make it part of the creation, the video creation that they put up, and that can kick off a career, right? And so,
totally,
that's I think where we are right now. I'll stop there because I would really be curious to hear how you're currently using TikTok. I've seen some of your videos that you've posted, but it would be really interesting, I think, to understand how you're using TikTok at this time.
Well, one of the things through all of this lovely romance, in a way, of being connected through the song Dreams, ostensibly, and I'm totally getting a whole communication with people who write, and we try to keep up as much as we can. But one of the lovely things, it's led a whole relationship that I'm now aware of, where one song led to another in terms of Fleetwood Mac world, and also comparisons with artists that we've all worked with. There's been a communication about people finding out the artists that we were inspired by in Fleetwood Mac. So it's become a whole real education and a reminder of our music, has meant something. That really is the backbone of a musician, me, speaking about what is it that you can do, which is, you've just said, in terms of your world, you're already realizing what a precious thing that you're holding, to allow, not allow, but to have it an open stage that people can express in all sorts of different ways. And I understand we're talking about music being a catalyst. I think that's the most precious thing that comes out first for me, and relating to people on a more personal level, and seeing what they write, seeing what is said, and that is part of this whole story.
I think a lot about how do we use this platform and the reach of the platform. Hundreds of millions of people who spend lots of time on TikTok every single day, hopefully being entertained, hopefully being able to create themselves. And I think about how do we enable more creativity, right? And so, I am curious how you think about that. So many of the barriers, if you want to call them barriers, that used to be in place when music was being created are no longer in place, because we now have technology that makes it much easier to create music and collaborate on music, even if you're not in the same place. But even going a step deeper than that, is there almost a barrier, a psychological barrier that comes down when you can create music on a platform like TikTok? Does it enable you to maybe overcome a fear of expressing yourself creatively for the first time, or maybe for the 100th time? That's something we think a lot about, and I think it'd be really interesting to get your point of view as someone who's been a musical creator for your whole life, how you would think about that.
Imagine a band is TikTok. My world opened up when I became part of a band. And I think that is what is intrinsically happening right from the beginning. Whether someone is aware of that, that's how I feel, is that they're joining a family where there's feedback, there is objectivity, there is we had fun with that, or a whole you turn around and say, well, that was terrible, but next time I'm gonna do better, instantly. Sometimes you wait, sometimes you do it again. And you become, and you see other people reflecting. For me, I could say as a musician would be when I turn around on stage and look at, say, John McVie, who plays bass in Fleetwood Mac. What is that? And always, for me, I would always say, remember what the real essence of how this thing started and how it affected people is the magic. And if you never lose that.
It leads me to, a next question, which is, if you think about these young creators, musical creators, who are they're all over the world right now. Hopefully they're on TikTok. Hopefully they're, kind of overcoming any fear to share their art with the TikTok community. What advice would you give them, or what reflections on your own career would you share that might help them, achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve in their musical aspirations, or perhaps a professional musical career?
Sometimes especially when you're younger, you don't overthink anything. But in truth, when you look back, so you're asking me, who, I'm not 18 years old, but I feel like a child still, and I still follow my instinct. And my instinct is, if it feels good and you're connected, drive and strive for that. And if you're given a gift where you can perform a stage, this is the stage that we're talking about. Yeah. It truly is a stage. Back in the day, it would be, a traveling theater group going around from town to town, performing art, performing theater, Shakespeare or whatever it would have been way back in the day. It has that same quality to it. And when you're part of that, would be, as quick as possible, realize that you have something precious, and be confident and believe in yourself, and believe in the fact that you have other people that feel exactly or very close to how you feel. And that becomes something I think is happening with TikTok in an amazing way, which is a blessing, because being lonely with a feeling is not always a great thing. You feel lonely with a feeling. What is happening is people are not feeling lonely, they're feeling that other entities, people are coming together with that and all throwing it into one big melting pot that becomes reflective of the real essence, is feel what you feel and don't be too shy about it. Because I was blessed that I ended up in sharing what I had with other people, which my life has been really ostensibly with Fleetwood Mac. And before that, of course, I was with a few other bands when I was learning my craft. But Fleetwood Mac is that family. Are you seeing a real pattern where so much talent is being presented that you can't help but feel, what can we do? What are the things that might lead to, in a way, guiding or being part of that guidance to turn the world onto to all this talent? What is happening in your world with that?
What we see happening is, any musical creator, hits a nerve with just one creator, that can get it moving, and hopefully other creators then pick up on the song as well, and then use it in the videos that they create. Wow. And it just creates this sort of exponential effect. And you can find a very large audience, and by the way, a global audience, right? These songs travel around the world on TikTok within minutes, hours, days. Yeah. So you can find this massive audience. What you then see is, usually within days, sometimes weeks, you see those songs that are finding that popularity and that audience on TikTok, they start to appear in the viral charts on Spotify and Amazon and Apple Music and the big other streaming services. And at that point, you know, we really have a hit song on our hands because it has crossed over from TikTok, being TikTok famous, to being in people's playlists, and they're listening to the full-length song, and they're hopefully digging into the discography of that artist and discovering that artist in a deeper way. I think almost equally important is that at that point the song has become a cultural moment, because that's one thing we see happening on TikTok as well. You know, we make these hit songs on TikTok, or the artists and the creators make them, but they happen on TikTok. But more than just it's a big song on a chart on TikTok or Spotify or Apple Music, it's now also a part of popular culture, you know, and that really is what TikTok is becoming a platform for, is this popular culture that's heavily based in music, but also very visual and very creative. You know, I have always said since the day I arrived at TikTok, every day, it does not cease to amaze me how much creativity some of these people, some of these creators put into a 50-second video, like 15, 20, 30 seconds. You watch it and a whole story has been told to you. And you don't realize that it's been 15, 20, or 30 seconds. You think you've watched, you know, a 5-minute or perhaps even longer video.
I agree.
So I think, you know, that those are all the types of things that we're really focused on.
Well, intuition, passion, we touched on, I think, right when we started talking about the whole thing is connected to a true expression, passion, all of that lovely stuff. And that description totally sets up what we're, in a way, trying to describe. And it's really, truly amazing what's on hand here. And that's a very beautiful, lovely story. And I think my own story would be going back to when we first started, what was a revitalizing of realizing, you know, we've had an incredible career. Our songs are blessed that we've been really successful and lasted, you know, really, it seems like forever, and who knows, whatever. But it was a reminder that the music meant something.
You know, I touched on this earlier when we talked about the 2018 Music Cares event and how TikTok is sort of reintroducing music to a whole new generation of fans. Dreams, you know, was really the moment on TikTok in 2020. But I was going back and looking at some of the other amazing legacy artists who had these kind of rebirths on TikTok. And again, I think reached entirely new groups of fans. So we had a big campaign with John Lennon for his birthday. Literally billions of views of these videos. We had Prince, we had Boney M, we had Run DMC, we had Queen, we had Elton John. You know, so legacy artists who have left such a mark in musical history, but now we're getting them in front of these 17-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds who perhaps didn't know that music, and that means a lot to me personally, to be able to contribute in that way.
One of the things that my father always used to say is, like, looking back on, you know, not in its complete sense, but looking back, which I'm able to do, you turn around and go, right, it was all worth a damn. And having you describe the retro effect of artists that you just mentioned, us being part of that family, is hugely gratifying for someone that could really rephrase that feeling and go, like, with everything that we did, everything that maybe we're still doing, and maybe some have stopped, like John Lennon, there is no more coming from him, sadly. Right. But you have that magic that you're talking about, and anyone that would be close to him, and if he was maybe saying, he could say this, that my father would say, no matter what, this was all worth a damn. It was worth something. Putting that out into the universe, and music is all about that. And having this conversation can lead. I could go on for hours talking about stuff and probably end up boring everyone, but it's really, really magical, and you're in the middle of that with your TikTok and what it represents for music. Like I said to Nathan, I said we had a personal conversation, and I was relating about what this had all meant, and he's had so much, in many ways, parts of it, a change of life, a change of rhythm, huge amounts of feedback, and I quietly said, you know what, Nathan, Fleetwood Mac owes you. That having that conversation about what it's meant as a musician, reaching in our conversation here and realizing and being reminded of music that's part of my life that's been revitalized with people that may never have had that connection. So I'm very grateful, and to you guys and girls there, and the whole premise of TikTok, and live long.
Mick, I just want to say thank you so much again. We've really enjoyed having the chance to talk to you about TikTok, having the chance to talk to you about Fleetwood Mac and Dreams. This has been a song, and the album Rumors has been a big part of my life. I think I told you this already, but we have a ritual in my home where we listen to the album every Saturday morning with my children, with my wife. So it's been a real honor to have a chance to talk to you. Thank you so much.